One of the great ski mountaineering trips in the state of Washington is the climb and ski of Mount Adams in southwest Washington state. Second only to Mount Rainier in height in the northwest, it reaches into the Pacific moisture-laden skies with a height of 12,299 feet. The winter snows cover the peak's glaciers and snowfields well into July most every year, though access is nearly impossible until late spring due to the snow coverage of the long, windy roads that make their way around the base of the mountain. For skiers, Mount Adams offers several long runs down the south and southwest slopes. The beauty of these long runs, which can extend close to 6,000 feet of descent early in the summer, is that they don't involve glaciers and crevasse risks that Mount Rainier harbors, and often the snow quality remains quite good into mid-July. It is August 2011. Spring came to the northwest with a vengeance and unleashed cold winds and heavy snows into the Cascade Range from March to June, resulting in snow depths rarely seen this late into the season. As a result, Mount Adams' snow coverage was at least 6 weeks behind in melting off, creating one of the latest ski mountaineering opportunities that many of us had ever seen. I had hoped to repeat an ascent and subsequent ski descent of this peak this season, 16 years after my first successful ski tour of the mountain in 1995. As weekends in July slipped by with poor weather, inability to access the trailhead, and consolidating snowpack, I scoped out the weather and my busy work schedule to see if a golden opportunity might arise. On August 12th, I pulled the trigger. The forecast was for sunny skies, light winds, and there was still good coverage of the descent routes. The climb starts at Cold Springs Campground at 5,500 feet. There are several options for how to tackle this peak, but in order to ski it, you want to pick a day to ascend in the morning while the snow is still cold and descend in the early afternoon when the frozen snow turns into summer corn snow. Speed climbers will get up early in the morning and dash up the mountain and back down in a handful of hours, while most people climb to a high camp, then ascend the next morning and return back to camp, pack up and leave on the last day. My plan was to enjoy the mountain a bit more, climb to a high camp at 8,000 feet, summit on day 2 and ski the south face, then descend to my high camp again. With a full pack for several nights on the mountain, loaded with skis and wearing my Telemark boots, I began my climb at 1 p.m. on Friday afternoon from Cold Springs Trailhead at 5,500 feet. The trail follows an old road path up to a junction with the Round the Mountain Trail at 6,400 feet, where the climbing trail splits off the junction up the mountain towards the Crescent Glacier and its moraine. After 2 hours of steady climbing, I was at the base of the cirque, ready to head up the west side of the old glacial remnant of a once much larger glacier at 7,300 feet. My goal for the afternoon was to reach 8,100 feet elevation and set up camp near the bottom of the snowfield to get the most out of my ski descent. There were plenty of friendly climbers along the way, always a bit envious of the idea of a ski descent, but not so envious of the weight and the effort to lug ski gear all the way up. Climbing alone also meant I had to carry everything for the camp, food, tent, and a stove, all of which is normally shared among at least one other person. At 3:30, I arrived at my prospective campsite and set up camp for the evening. The sky was fairly clear with spectacular views of Mount Hood and Mount St. Helen to the south and west, respectively. After dinner and part of a good book, I slept with the mountain winds reminding me that they were still there. The nearly constant flapping of the tent made sleep difficult, but it was not nearly as bad as my trip here in 2005. That attempt to climb the mountain with my son and a couple friends started similarly, but was ended by a powerful windstorm that raged all night and into our summit day, freezing the snow solid and blowing at over 60 miles an hour for days. No one summited during those 24 hours, as the winds threatened to lift you off the ground and send you sailing down the icy slope with no place to stop other than the rock debris from the old volcanic eruptions that line the snowfields. The sunset and moonrise were spectacular, as was watching the alpenglow bathe the west faces of Mount Adams and Mount Hood. Time to eat and get ready to move up the steady slopes of Mount Adams. The first objective is Lunch Counter at around 9,300 feet, a popular place for a high camp for climbers who are not skiing down. Camping low makes more sense for skiing farther, but if you're not skiing down, having a shorter summit day by climbing higher on the first day makes more sense. Skiing with a full pack is challenging on the sometimes sun-cupped snow of the lower snowfields. Leaving at 6 a.m., I made Lunch Counter by 7 a.m. At that point, putting on crampons to ascend the steeper south face made the most sense for efficiency. The south face is a 2,200-foot steady climb that leads to the false summit. It seems endless, as no one who is native to the area is acclimatized to 10,000 plus feet or more. Trying to keep a slow yet steady climbing rhythm is critical to avoid hyperventilating in the thinner air. If you breathe too hard, you can blow off your carbon dioxide and feel lightheaded or dizzy. Not something you want to do on a 40 to 45 degree slope that makes up the south face of this volcanic dome. After almost 3 hours, I reached the false summit at 11,540 feet.
So I'm at the false summit here, about 11,200 feet, and I'm trying to decide if I should bring my skis up there or not. The snow isn't that good, and the extra weight is really coming bearing on me right now, so I may end up just hiking it, but I got to see how I feel after I eat, so we'll see how that goes.
Looking up the last pitch to the true summit, it was evident that the snow and winds had badly affected the snow up high. Word was that skiing from the summit was not worth it due to the deep sastrugi and some penitente formations, making deep frozen ridges, not ideal ski terrain. After a short rest, I left my skis by the false summit and made for the true summit dome. The large, expansive saddle that connects the two peaks is a quiet, warmer area due to the protection from the winds by the summit dome. With a steady pace, I plodded my way up to the summit, joined by others who were on the same pilgrimage to the top. summit views were just stunning, as was the elation of reaching this dramatic place. Everyone congratulates everyone else who is at the top when you arrive. On this day, the skies were incredibly clear, and the Cascade Range was visible for over 100 miles in each direction. Glacier Peak and Mount Rainier were visible to the north, and Mount Hood and Mount Jefferson to the south, and battered Mount St. Helens to the west. The sun was brilliant, the winds were light, and I sat on the summit without even a hint of effects of altitude. My legs were tired from the extra weight of the skis I hauled all morning, but leaving them back at the false summit for the last pitch made the climb a bit easier. After resting for 15 minutes on the summit and taking in the views, it was time to begin the descent. Getting down from the summit dome, the laziest way, was definitely on my mind. That meant finding a glissade chute and sliding down the south face of the summit dome to the saddle just north of the false summit. The pitch was moderate and the snow was softening rapidly in the summer sun, so that limited the speed of the glissade to a pretty slow rate, but it did make for a descent to the false summit that took only about 15 minutes, putting me there at the best time to begin skiing the long south face from 11,500 feet down to my tent at 8,000 feet. Strapping on my Telemark skis, I approached the edge of the false summit ridge, simply hoping to have enough leg strength to make it down the steep slope without collapsing in a heap of liquefied quadricep muscles halfway down the slope. I pointed my skis south and off I went. The west side of the run was minimally affected by boot tracks or the sun, which made for the best line on the skier's right of the descent. After taking a handful of breaks to catch my breath and hundreds of turns later, I made it to the deep runnels surrounding the lunch counter area. From there I traversed west across the lower snowfield to the western edge of the field and found better snow there than I had found in the center of the climbing route down. This was very late in the year to be skiing this peak, but the heavy snows of the spring made coverage good enough to find a way down on skiable snow. At 3 p.m. I climbed off the snowfield with skis in hand back to my campsite a mere 40 feet from the edge. I had done it, and I was glad to be spending the night to get some rest. A nap, dinner, and finishing a good book on my mobile phone was in store for the rest of the day. I think I got in around 3 or so, down the summit 12:30, so about 2.5 hours down to my campsite. Anyway, I'm going to stay the night, enjoy the beautiful scenery. You can see out here it's a pretty amazing day still, so it's not a bad day to stay inside. In the early evening, I overheard someone talking about a climber who had slipped down below where I was camped, but there was no urgency or report of injury, just slow going. As it turned out, the climber, a 50-year-old from Eatonville, Washington, was badly injured with several fractures after sliding down a short, steep pitch and slamming into rocks at the bottom of the slope. He was helicoptered off the mountain at midnight by a group of climbers who rescued him. After a fitful night of sleep, it was time to get up and climb down the mountain. The quickest exit was along the snow-covered ridge just west of the Crescent Glacier. However, early in the morning the snow was frozen and slick, so crampons were in order to keep my footing solid. I climbed down the same route that the injured climber had fallen down just 10 hours earlier. The hike out from there is just a foot-pounder when you have a heavy pack. It was 2 hours of a gradual descent, half of it on still melting snow patches that laced the mountainside, so unusually late this season. I arrived at Cold Springs Campground at 8:30 a.m. and called it good. It was a great climb. Perfect weather, spectacular sunsets and sunrises, good snow, and a great late-season ski tour. This climb is one of the great ski mountaineering tours, not necessarily because of the challenging skiing, but more so a combination of dramatic scenery and the austere landscapes of this great volcano that is encased in snow and ice year-round. Climbing solo adds one other dimension I hadn't experienced before. You don't have the luxury of companions to share the burdens, nor do you have someone to push you on. You simply have to do it, one step at a time, and one turn at a time.